Gex. Enter the Gecko, the sequel to the 2D side-scrolling platformer Gex. This game came out in 1998 for the Sony PlayStation and ported to the N64 months later. Unlike its predecessor, it's a 3D platformer instead of a 2D one, much like Mario 64 or the Banjo-Kazooie games. So does Gex fare better in the third dimension, or should we just turn off the TV? Let's let the channel surfing begin.
Yet again, the game starts off with a CG introduction. Gex is watching TV when he's kidnapped by two Secret Service agents. They explain to him that Rez is back in the media dimension and only Gex can stop him. It's made pretty clear at this point that the game's overall theme is that of a James Bond parody. The title screen is really interesting. The camera will swoop through a lot of dusk-lit television scenery before landing on Gex standing in front of a TV with your options on it. The passwords make a return, but they're completely unnecessary as the game sports a save feature. Thank God. I may as well mention now that apparently the 3DO version of Gex did have a save feature, and for some reason they removed it when porting it to the PlayStation. Starting the game will land you in the media dimension, which is the game's hub world. This world is 007 themed, notably by the unsubtly James Bond inspired music. From here, you're able to enter various TV sets that will lead to different levels. The levels are again all themed after different TV and movie genres. Cartoon and horror both make a return, though this time the cartoon level is more so inspired by Looney Tunes, and the horror level being more so a haunted house level rather than a graveyard level. Other themes include the Kung Fu level, future level, prehistory level, and sci-fi level. All of these themes are reused at least once each. For instance, there are 2 cartoon theme levels, 3 horror levels, 2 Kung Fu levels, and etc. Despite making the transition to 3D, Gex still sports all of his old abilities. You can whack enemies with your tail by pressing the square button and can also whip out your tongue with the circle button. Gex can also still climb walls and tail bounce on enemies, though the tail bouncing mechanic was put to much better use in this game. You now use this move by pressing and holding the X button when in midair. Gex will then bounce off the ground, gaining some extra height. This is great for getting to higher areas or for quickly bouncing off of platforms that are moving or are going to disappear. The move still works as an attack, but its primary use is now for jumping over higher obstacles. Gex also now has a karate kick move that you can execute by holding down the R2 button while running and then jumping. The karate kick doubles as a long jump and comes in handy whenever you need to clear a wide open space.
It's tail time!
You can also duck with the R2 button, but it serves absolutely no purpose other than messing up your long jumps. This is seriously annoying. Sometimes I want a karate kick, but instead, Gex will duck in place. They should have just removed this move completely, as it serves no purpose whatsoever, and it only hinders the gameplay due to poor button mapping. You move Gex around with a D-pad. Unfortunately, this game does not have analog support. Despite this though, Gex seems to control fairly well with the limited 8 directions, so it's not that much of a downer. There are 4 paw prints at the top of the screen that will represent Gex's health. Take 4 hits and you're dead. If you get hit, you can recover these paw prints by eating green flies with a tongue whip ability. You'll find these flies in small television sets scattered throughout the game. These TV sets will also sometimes contain purple flies, which will give you an extra life, or blue and red flies that give Gex temporary fire and ice powers. These powers don't actually do anything more than make Gex invincible for a short time. The ice and fire effects are purely aesthetic and don't serve any gameplay value, with maybe one exception in the entire game. It would have been really nice to see these power-ups incorporated in the game mechanics somehow, but as of this game, it was a completely wasted opportunity. You'll also sometimes find checker televisions that will act as checkpoints mid-level. After hitting one of these, if you die in the level, you'll reappear right at the checkpoint. The object of Enter the Gecko is to collect red remote controls that will unlock more and more levels until you reach the final boss. Like Mario 64, each level has multiple objectives. Completing one of these will reward you with a red remote. So essentially, the red remote controls are this game's stars or jickeys. These objectives can vary from getting to a certain point in the level, or performing a certain action in the level to activate a TV that you'll get the remote from. Earning enough remotes will unlock a boss level that will open the gates to a new section of the hub world after completion. The first boss is a total snore, but the battles after it aren't half bad. This game is more of a collect-a-thon element than Gex did. Instead of collecting 100 fly coins to get an extra life, you'll now collect various items that fit the level's theme. Collecting 30 will give you a 1-up and then change the item that you have to collect. Collecting 40 of this item will give you another 1-up and then again change the item. Getting 50 of this item will then reward you with a white remote control. For example, in the cartoon stages you must collect 30 carrots, then 40 soup cans, and then 50 TNT plungers to be rewarded with with a white remote. It sounds taxing, but the items are never hard enough to find to make it a chore. White remote controls will unlock bonus levels that will involve collecting a certain amount of items within an allotted time. Completing these levels rewards you with a yellow remote control that will unlock the 3 extra levels, which are very challenging, short action stages. They're completely optional and aren't required to beat the game. It's just a nice little bonus hidden on top of the hub world. Dana Gould reprises his role as Gex and will once again spout completely random pop culture references as you play the game.
The princess is here on the detention level. Ooh.
There was a lot more of them recorded for this game, so you won't as often hear him say the same one over and over. I think he does a better job voicing Gex this time around, but even still, I can't help but to feel that they only included these voice clips just because they were able to. Very rarely do the jokes and references ever have anything to do with what's on screen. It's not too bothersome, but it just seems a little pointless. The only thing I can really say is justified is whenever he says his own catchphrase before entering a level, but even that gets annoying after hearing a million variations of it.
It's tail time. It's tail time. Tail time. Tail time.
I want to rip his damn tail off so there won't be another tail time.
It's tail time.
Level design in Enter the Gecko is pretty much what you'd expect from a collectathon platformer. Most levels are fairly open with platforms aplenty to navigate your way through. The wall climbing mechanic allows for some unique design here and there, and the game sports enough segments that are put together well enough to keep the game fun. The camera can sometimes be an issue though. Every now and then when you come to a tight area, you'll end up fighting the camera for a bit before wanting to continue forward. There are multiple camera options, but none of them really seem to solve this issue. The game's visuals are pretty nice overall. The levels all do a good job at communicating the given themes, and Gex will even sometimes wear a different costume depending on the level. There's an amount of detail put into the game that's really easy to appreciate. The game's soundtrack is also fairly solid. Each different level sports a number of songs that play depending on the level's theme. The music is pretty easy on the ears, and it all does a good job of accompanying each level.
A lot of the music tracks were actually cut from the N64 version of the game, so any level that had multiple bits of music throughout were cut down only to one track. This was done to help it fit onto the cartridge.
Not only was the music cut, but many of the lines Gex says were also cut. This results in Gex being way more annoying in the N64 version. And if you think some of the audio was the only thing they chopped out of the N64 version, oh my god, don't even get me started. All 3 of the extra stages and some of the bonus levels were also cut, along with one of the entire main stages. But I guess to make up for this, the N64 version does have an exclusive level of its own, themed after the Titanic. It plays radically different than any other level as it's entirely underwater. Gex swims around pretty slowly, and controlling him underwater is overall pretty clunky. This exclusive level really isn't much to write home about, and it definitely doesn't justify cutting the other content. And if you thought the camera was bad in the PlayStation version, oh my god, the camera is even worse and even more unresponsive in the N64 version. Not only that, but the controls feel a lot more awkward as the game does let you use the control stick, but Gex is still limited to only 8-direction movement. Graphics have also seen a notable downgrade in the N64 version. Many textures are now duller and look more washed out, and 2D assets just don't look as good. Take this fire animation for example, it looks much brighter and better in the PlayStation version. Also cut from the N64 version were all of the CG cutscenes. That means no introduction story, no ending cutscene, no story whatsoever. You're just plopped into the game with no story exposition. Though I guess it doesn't really matter in a game like this, but that doesn't excuse the poor quality of this scene right here.
It's tail time.
That is all you see before the game starts. That is lazy. In the PlayStation version, that looks like this.
Coming through.
The N64 version doesn't even have a title screen. It just puts you in the hub world at the pause screen. And from there, it just expects you to load or do whatever.
I guess Nintendo really got the short end of the stick with this port.
In the final events of the game, you'll once more find yourself at Resopolis.
Let's get it on.
This is probably my favorite level in the game. It's challenging, has a lot of variety in the level design, and it tests all the abilities you'll learn throughout the game. That's typically how a final level in a platformer should be, and it does a good job of it. The last boss is once again Rez, and he's also pretty tough. Once you've got his patterns down, it doesn't take too long to beat him. Once defeated, Rez will tell Gex that he's his father.
Gex, it is me, your father.
Gex just doesn't believe him, and then continues to deliver the final blow.
Wow. What if in Star Wars, when Darth Vader told Luke he was his father, Luke was just like, no, and then just killed him?
The game ends with some more James Bond parody with some generic scene with Gex in a suit where he gets laid or something, I don't know. You know, I guess how Bond saves the day and gets the girl, even though there was no girl. Or day to save, really, like.
So in the end is Gex, Enter the Gecko, a good game. It's not bad at all. I had a good time with it. It's definitely a competent enough platform to be worth some of your time if you're a fan of the genre. The N64 version, however, while not unplayable, should easily be avoided in favor of the PlayStation version. It's on the PlayStation Network for only $6, so if you're a fan of platformers, it's definitely worth a purchase. So now that we know that Gex is better off in the third dimension, how will Gex 3 hold up?
Hello and welcome to the credits card. Thank you for watching this entire episode of Nitro Rad. As always, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video if you thought it was good. And if this is your first time watching Nitro Rad and you think it's a good show and you want to see some more, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to see the last video I did on the first Gex game, you can watch that by clicking the video on the left. A while back, I did another series of videos on a different platforming series called Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, so if you want to watch those ones, you can click the video on the right. I'd really like to thank some of the people that commented on the last video I made because they told me things I didn't know about the first Gex. Like how there was a save feature in the 3DO version, so your guys' comments help. Like, I can incorporate those facts into the next video, so I actually really appreciate that you guys do that. I hope you guys will stick around and continue doing that in the future. I really appreciate it. So, as always, see ya and take care.
So in the end is Gex, Enter the Gecko, a good game. It's not bad at all. I had a good time with it. It's easily a most